Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Glad Force Flex Max Strength now has bags with a 2 times stronger top for over-the-top strength. Like the kind of over-the-top strength you need when, Bill, breaks your bowl of buffalo chicken dip. Glad Force Flex Max Strength. Strong enough for all of life's garbage. 2 times stronger top versus 13-gallon Force Flex bags.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best Group of 5 conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great Group of 5 conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sunbelt these days.
Welcome back to FunBelt Podcast. Dusty, I felt like we've done so many FunBelt podcasts. I don't even remember what episode this is. Is it 30? Is it 600? Have we reached the 1,000th episode?
29, baby. 29.
Oh, 29. Okay. Well, that's close. 1,029. Either way, tonight we're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about the Sun Belt. We're going to talk about the incoming Sun Belt Championship matchup between the Cajuns and Appalachian State. We're going to review what happened last week. We're going to prognosticate what's happening next week. But Dusty, we've got a special guest here that we got to talk to first.
I'm not a special guest. I'm always here.
You're
Jimmy.
not the special guest, Dusty. He's in the green room. He's eating Ritz crackers. He's drinking all the champagne. He's Chris Vannini from The Athletic. He's come to sort of talk to us a little bit about conference wars and about college football playoffs. Chris, welcome back to the show. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Been a lots going on since the last time we talked.
Heck yeah. You know, when we first talked, Chris, all this sort of conference realignment discussion was almost theoretical. There was just a lot of, I think at the time the SEC had made their move and Oklahoma and Texas had bailed on the Big 12. And we were just thinking, well, what's the ripple effect? What's going to happen next? What is the American going to do? And when the American makes their move, what are the rest of us going to do? How do you, now that we've seen how it's shaken up and all the dust is settled, has it gone the way that you thought it was going to go?
It mostly did, except for the American adding 6 teams. I thought it might be 2 or 4. I didn't see all of them getting in. I wasn't sure about FAU. I wasn't sure about Rice. So that was probably in the end. And because they did that, obviously Conference USA was in a tough spot where it had to add maybe more than it would have otherwise. But other than that, not a total surprise. I'm not surprised the Mountain West schools did not leave. I'm not surprised James Madison has FBS. I'm not surprised, Marshall made a move out and stuff like that. So not total surprises overall, other than maybe the American going so big.
So you said you weren't surprised. I'm sorry, Justin, but you said you weren't surprised that the Mountain West rebuffed the American. When the Mountain West said, "Nah, we're good, thanks," do you think the American panicked a little and thought, "Okay, we're just going to grab as many guys as we can"?
I don't know about panicked, but I think they saw a chance to take all of Texas away in the Group of 5, essentially, other than Texas State, because that was, when the Mountain West did not lose anybody, there were people in that league who thought, hey, we should go look at North Texas or UTSA or something like that. And people at a lot of those schools would have preferred the Mountain West to the American. But the Mountain West was told by its media partners, hey, we're not giving you any more money for any of those schools. So they decided not to do that. No, that's the same case for the American and the Sun Belt and what they're doing, but the Mountain West didn't want to do it. So then the American was like, okay, let's take all of Texas to make sure the Mountain West can't change his mind, go into Texas, anything like that. They kind of wanted to corner that market in losing Houston. So, grabbing all of those Texas schools, I think was probably a response in some ways.
So when we kind of came into this season, we talked about the Sun Belt probably being, if not the number 2 G5 league. With these additions, do you think that the Sun Belt kind of retains that title going into 2022?
As number 2?
Yes.
Going into 2022, nothing really changes. Nobody's leaving anywhere. And you'll have Louisiana losing a lot of players, maybe their coach. You will have Coastal Carolina losing their coach. So there are questions at those schools of what's next. What's next after Billy Napier? What's next after Jamie Chadwell? So we'll have to see. And the Mountain West has been pretty good this year. I mean, I might make the case the Mountain West has been the best league this year. The American, outside of Cincinnati, maybe number 3. I think it's the American and the Sun Belt really going for number 2 right now. So, so the Sun Belt is obviously long term in a good spot, but I think 2022 will be potentially a year of transition.
You don't think that, even though 23 is kind of the target year where everyone said, hey, we're going to make the moves then, that for scheduling and the clean breakup, that everyone just kind of shifts for 22?
You're asking if schools will move conferences in 2022?
Right, to start the 22 season.
I don't think so. I think it's all likely going to be 23. There's a lot to get through. Exit fees and stuff like that are more expensive. And part of this was Texas and Oklahoma not knowing when they were going to go. We still don't. I mean, if something were to happen in Texas and Oklahoma were suddenly about to move, then maybe it moves quicker. But 2023 is about when everybody's planning for right now across all the conferences.
Chris Vannini from The Athletic, thanks for coming on the show today. I want to ask you what your broad 30,000-foot view of conference realignment wars was. Who's the big winner in this, and who was the big loser?
The big winner is the SEC. It added 2 of the biggest brands in football. It continues to position itself as the strongest conference politically, on the field, everything like that. If we're heading down toward a Super League, which I think we are, they will have a major role in controlling it. Losers, the Big 12, obviously, it's going to be making a lot less money now, even with the new teams it's adding. But it's not dead, and there was a chance it was going to die. So there is that. And kind of the same with Conference USA. I think Conference USA is a loser, but they survived. And then I think the American, for the time being, is a loser in all this. They lost their 3 biggest brands, and they're replacing them with a bunch of question marks. The league is, still okay, but it's not nearly going to be at the level it was.
So the MAC not getting Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky, did they dodge a bullet, or did they miss a big opportunity?
I don't think it was going to make a big difference either way. Nobody in that league thought this was something we had to do. Nobody thought it was something we can't do. It was largely just, do we need to get more numbers? We're a 12-team league. Do we need to get bigger? The Americans at 14, the Sun Belt's at 14. Are there strength in numbers? Ultimately, when Middle Tennessee decided not to do it, there was really no choice. They were not going to take one. Western Kentucky really wanted to go, but Middle Tennessee didn't want to pay the exit fees, didn't want to pay the entrance fees. Wasn't sure how it would fit among Midwestern schools, and so it decided not to. The MAC is weird because they've been among the most stable in that it's a lot of the same members. You can drive to a lot of the schools. It makes a lot of sense what they are. But they're also the most subsidized conference in terms of getting money to pay for programs through student fees and stuff like that. So money is an issue there, and nobody in that conference wanted to receive less money than they would have otherwise if they expanded.
So shifting gears down to the FCS, the SEC of the FCS ranks has always been the Southland Conference. They sold the farm to hold on to their marquee program there of McNeese State. What are your thoughts on that? Because to me, it looks like they've set themselves up that if any member starts kind of debating leaving or going to another conference, there's not a whole lot the conference can really offer.
Well, they've already lost so much. I mean, they lost so many schools to the WAC anyway. It kind of feels like the Big 12 deal where they don't have the same kind of revenue sharing, and Texas and Oklahoma make much more money than anybody else. And that was a factor in Texas A&M leaving and stuff like that. But in the end, Texas and Oklahoma ran the league, and they could do what they want because everybody wanted to keep them. McNeese is probably in the same spot now in the Southland where they'll be, the Southland doesn't want to lose McNeese more than anybody else. So it's certainly a unique way. I've never seen anything like that, to give them all the conference championship games and tournaments for all these different sports. I don't know if it's really going to make an economic impact like they say it will, but it's certainly an interesting way to create, favored nation status.
Yeah, and I'm interested more on the logistics side of it, just to see how it kind of shakes out, because Lake Charles already has like the state championship for baseball, for softball, for basketball already. So there's only so many places where you can really play those games at. McNeese only has the one field, so you're kind of tying yourself off there. There's no other colleges in the area that you could kind of offload some of that load to. So I'm just kind of interested in the logistics of when everything under the sun in Louisiana is going on. Where does it all fit?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the geography as well as you are down at that place, so you'd probably have a better answer than me. But it's a fair point. I mean, if you have all that stuff going on, you got to have somewhere to play it.
Dusty thinks that we all have this sort of intimate knowledge of Louisiana. I guess that's how Louisiana's think.
It's the only state in the union.
Well, I think you all have a Napoleon complex out there. You just kind of
that's Napoleonic law.
Yeah. I was trying to tie that in. It didn't work out very well. Chris, I know you're a big, I don't want to say fan, but you're a big observer of the college football playoffs process. In fact, I believe that they get back onto their ESPN show pretty shortly, and everybody on Twitter is just going to be raging about what's happening next. One of the things I've noticed is that the conference or the committee has pretty much largely ignored anybody from the Sun Belt, specifically Louisiana. Is that a mistake on their part, or do you feel like they're making the right decision there?
Louisiana's been such a tough team to grade. Like, yeah, they're 10-1 and they blew out App State. That's pretty darn clear. But they've played so many one-score games that have come down to the last minute against teams that they are clearly better than. And that's kind of been a thing under Napier for the last couple of years, is that, they played Georgia State a lot closer than they probably should. Georgia Southern too sometimes. The ULM game a couple times has been come down to a field goal or something like that when they've been much more talented. So, I think the committee sees that and dings them for it.
Yeah,
I have them ranked, in that 20 to 25 range, I think. But I'm not surprised the committee's leaving them out.
Yeah, it seems like the AP and the committee are way off this year in the bottom half of the poll, which I know isn't that important in the whole scheme of things, considering, once it gets to this time of year, it only seems like the top 6 or 7 are really discussed. But it would be a big deal for the Sun Belt to be back into that limelight again. Do you think Napier or Louisiana it hasn't done? I guess it sounds to me like you agree. Like we discussed it a little bit earlier, that Louisiana, because of their sort of layout, sort of their casual attitude toward these opponents, haven't done themselves a favor in terms of gaining the attention of the committee. So what do you think Louisiana needs to do against ULM and then in the championship game to at least get that notice?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible, by the time we're done recording here that they are in, they could be. But you got to blow out ULM. You got to take care of them like you're supposed to with your talent level. And then you got to beat App State the second time and win the conference. The problem with that is, hey, if you beat App State twice, and how good is App State? That's, the committee, does all sorts of gymnastics to try to devalue certain wins. It's going to be the same thing with Houston and Cincinnati. Houston's a ranked team now.
Yeah.
But if Cincinnati beats them, they won't be ranked. So then it doesn't count as a ranked win. So yeah, I mean, Louisiana's not out of the running for that New Year's Six spot. If Houston beats Cincinnati has East Carolina this week. Could be a tough game. Maybe something goes wrong there. But there's a lot of good top level G5 teams that they're just kind of behind right now.
So speaking of Cincinnati, and I know the show's coming on pretty soon, and by the time people listen to this, it'll all be moot. But are they being justified in the caution that the committee is working on with them? I know that I'm sure that people love to see Michigan leapfrog them. There's people talking about Notre Dame leapfrogging them. And if so, what does that say about the group of five in general, in terms of if they ever have a shot at competing in the top four?
I mean, you got to be more than perfect. It's, Cincinnati is kind of the same deal as Louisiana, where, they won some games that shouldn't have been so close, like Tulane and Navy and USF. And so if you give people a reason to be like, maybe not, then they're going to take it.
You know what bugs me about that, Chris? Yeah. You know what just drives me crazy about that is that it's just there's this assumption that if you're a good group of five team, you should just barrel through your conference, not understanding that conference games are just as tough as any other conference, whether it's American or the Big Ten or the SEC. These are tough games for these teams. And when you're Tulane playing against Cincinnati, well, Tulane's getting up for this game, and they're doing their very best to play this game, and they're not chicken feed. So I don't know what we have to do to make the committee realize that a hard-fought game against a conference foe is just as worthy as any other hard-fought game against a conference foe.
Well, that was the thing with UCF. I mean, UCF didn't have the marquee non-conference win, but they had dominated everybody in their conference pretty much, and that wasn't enough. So it's kind of one or the other. You got to do both. You got to have a top 10 road win, and you got to completely dominate your conference, I guess.
Well, if Dusty doesn't have any more questions, Dusty, do you have any questions?
I just can't get the word in.
I know. I'm so excited about Chris here that I just keep talking.
The coaching carousel is spinning rapidly right now. Do any of the moves that have happened so far with Georgia Southern and Troy, are either one of those moves surprising to you so far?
No, not surprising. I mean, I guess I'm maybe surprised that Georgia Southern made the hire so quickly, but that's the thing now. I mean, we've got everybody hiring coaches before the season's even over now, so that's kind of the new deal. Troy, I'm not surprised. I mean, 3 straight non-winning seasons at a place that won 10 games each prior. You can win at Troy, and 5 and 6 isn't enough. So not surprised at that. I'm not sure how Clay Helton will do at Georgia Southern. Doesn't seem like triple option is going to be the thing anymore. So you better win doing it another way at that place if you're going to do that. So, yeah, not surprised necessarily by either though.
Do you feel that maybe Spavital at Texas State's maybe the next to fall, or do you think that it'll be Napier and Chadwell leaving Coastal and Louisiana Lafayette?
Well, I mean, we got one game left in the season. I don't think Billy Napier is going to take a job on Sunday because he's got a conference championship game to play. So if Jake Spavital is going to be fired, probably going to come on Sunday. It's when the day after the regular season ends. So between the two, if Spavital is going to get fired, and we don't yet know that for sure. There hasn't really been a kind of a lean either a read either way on the situation. That would probably come first.
What else you have, Jeremy?
I have one last question because it's something that you mentioned earlier, and Dusty seems to be on the same page on this. You've mentioned Chadwell on the move a couple times, just kind of almost in a way that it's a given. Where do you think Chadwell might end up?
He's going to have him and Billy Napier are going to have a lot of options because James Franklin ain't leaving and Jimbo Fisher ain't leaving, which means a lot of guys. There's going to be a lot more trickle down in that way. Chadwell seems like a perfect fit for a place like Virginia Tech. He knows that region. He's got a fun offense, and just it fits in a lot of ways. I don't know which way Virginia Tech's going to go. It depends on a few number of other things, but he didn't wasn't really in the mix for Tennessee last year. maybe he's not ready for an SEC type job out of Coastal Carolina. But Virginia Tech's a place with a lot of resources and stuff like that. And so if I had to pick a place, I think that feels like the biggest fit, but we got to see what else opens up because there's going to be more.
Chris Vannini, we appreciate you being on the show. Is there anything that you'd like to plug before we say our goodbyes?
Oh, yeah. I got a story ran today on Tuesday. I spent last week embedded with the SMU team as they prepared to play Cincinnati. So kind of got a good look at how they game planned and everything they prepared and wanted to do and things they were concerned about. And then I was with them for the game in Cincinnati on Saturday when they got the doors blown off of them. And every concern that they had, everything they were worried about going wrong went wrong. And the story kind of lays out how, a coach will say, another team just executed better than us. And it sounds like a cliche, but it really is true. And it really is what football comes down to. Coaches are smart people. There are not real secrets. It comes down to getting your guys to do what they need to do. And that's hard. And Cincinnati's one of the best at doing that. And I think the story in that game kind of laid it out.
So did you have any clue that Sonny Dykes was going to take that TCU job when you were embedded with the Ponies?
Well, I mean, ever since the job opened, he's been clearly the guy who's the best fit for that job. I mean, Sonny hasn't taken the job yet. Would I be surprised if he doesn't go? Yeah. We didn't talk about that specifically, but it's in the Dallas area. It makes as much sense as any coaching change can possibly be, really, to just go across down to TCU. And the other thing I'll plug, the Athletic has a $1 a month Black Friday deal going on this week. So if you have not subscribed to the Athletic yet, if you have considered it but weren't sure, now is the best time to get in. You can just go to any story, preferably mine, and just click on a story if you're not a subscriber, and the link will just pop right up there for you.
Damn it, Chris, because I subscribed after you were on the show last time to make sure I had all the insight of your writings for the season, and I didn't get it for $1.
Yeah, we're paying full price. What the hell?
Well, we appreciate you for that, and I'm not going to not say that there aren't ways to get discounts like you can with any subscription service.
Well, Chris, we'll be name dropping you at the offices of the Athletic fairly soon, just so we get that deep discount. Chris, it was a pleasure having you on. Good luck tonight with whatever analysis that you end up coming up with during the college football playoff show. We thank you for your service.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So that was a great interview with Chris Vannini. We really enjoyed his insight and what he brought to the table. But now it's time for brass tacks, Dusty Thibodeau. It's time to talk a little Sunbelt football. It's time to talk about what happened last week and what's going to happen next week. It's the last week of the season for regular season Sunbelt football. I have a lot of thoughts on the last game of the season. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on the last game of the season. Before we can even talk about that, we have to talk about next week. And let's do it. The first game I want to talk about, Dusty.
What's the game you want to talk about?
LSU versus ULM. Tell me what happened.
So, looking at it, ULM covered. They covered the under. And if you look at the plays, ULM was in position to make it a closer game. Do they pull off the upset with a couple of additional players? Maybe. To me, one of the best plays was the fake they did on 4th and goal at the 2. Mm-hmm. Tip of the cap to ULM great Doug Peterson. They ran the Philly special, but they had a little overzealous receiver that oh shit, it's working. And he sailed the ball over Rhett Rod's head for an incomplete pass, but it was there for 6. I thought when ULM drove on the initial drive down, they should have kicked a field goal instead of going for it just to kind of break onto the scoreboard.
Sure.
That takes it from the 13 point difference that the game wound up being to a 10 point. To me, don't get me wrong, 13 points is 2 scores is still way respectable for going up against SEC school. But I just felt like you got to take every point you can get, not knowing how many points you are going to get. The other big takeaway I had, ULM had only scored one time at LSU, dating back to, forget if it was 2004, 2005. They scored twice on Saturday.
Yes. And you know what? I watched the last, I guess I managed to watch the last quarter of the game. And what I saw was a spiritually defeated LSU. You could tell they were like, damn, this game was a lot harder than it needed to be. I thought ULM did a terrific job of holding their own and representing the Sun Belt. Because let's face it, the Warhawks aren't the elite Sun Belt team this year. And they came over to LSU and really played them a really good game. And I really appreciated Coach Terry Bowden calling that timeout with 5 seconds left. I thought that was like a little bit of a boss move.
Well, I mean, he's one of the greats of the SEC. That's his house. If I'm not mistaken, that's his first loss he's ever suffered in Tiger Stadium.
Wow.
So, I guess he wanted to savor every moment of that game and just take it all in. One last note about that game. Our former guest, Boogie Knight, second TD reception of the season with the Warhawks on the board.
I heard Boogie Knight's name several times, even in that quarter. I think he's returning kicks, right?
He is returning kicks. Yeah. Although he has not had many actual kick returns. He's fair caught just about everything. So it still makes me wonder, and kind of the jury's out on whether or not he is as elite of a kick returner as he has the potential of being at a receiver.
He has an elite name, that's for sure. So he will never lose that. Even in his old age, he will always be Boogie Knight. So he'll always have that.
The other SEC matchup of the weekend, it was ugly. The Jags went to Neyland Stadium and got hammered 60-14. Jags 1 of 16 on third down.
Now, were you a little surprised by that final outcome?
That it was that wide, yes. Obviously not that the Jags lost, because I mean, it's a money game. They were going there to get beat up and take some money back to Mobile. But I was surprised that there were times they looked helpless in that game, and that it was just not a fair fight.
Tennessee and South Alabama both were 5-5 entering that game. So both teams had a sort of extra motivation to win that game. And certainly Tennessee came out with, it seemed like something to prove. I've seen Tennessee come out flat before. Tennessee did not come out flat against South Alabama. And I don't know if that part of it was too because they're not playing with Bentley anymore. They've got the backup quarterback in there. But I really did expect more from South Alabama. And I'm a little surprised that the score was as lopsided as it was.
The big surprise to me, and this is not a knock on the Cajuns defense who beat Liberty 42-14, they had 6 turnovers. That is like elite level defense that I don't think anybody's done that this season.
That's a lot of turnovers. Yeah, I remember Georgia Southern had 5 on Arkansas State one season. Arkansas State ended up winning that game, but I thought 5 was like a number that you couldn't even possibly have. So you're telling me there were 6?
6 turnovers forced by the Raging Cajuns.
That's pretty incredible.
I like that they kind of went in and dominated that game, though, because I feel like that the Liberty is still kind of the darling independent team that everyone thinks is way up on the pedestal. And then with them getting in Conference USA, it's a huge win for Sunbelt versus Conference USA there. I like that they went in there and dominated it. They're rolling. And even Chris Vannini, when we had him on earlier, talked about it. I feel like the Cajuns kind of troll their opponents for the most part. Like they do enough to win, and it's never really in doubt of if they're going to win. But I picture them kind of in a run down the street with like a carrot behind them, being chased by the donkey. Eventually, it's going to catch up to them, but they're always just fast enough to stay away from the donkey.
See, to me, it's more like Jim Brown, the old Cleveland running back, who when he would get tackled, he would slowly get up and sort of shuffle over back to the huddle. And then all of a sudden he put on that burst of speed. It's like Louisiana's always conserving their energy. They don't want to expend too much energy on these guys. And I think the line for Louisiana Liberty, the Vegas line, had Liberty with 4 points. So I was really surprised by that people didn't understand just how good Louisiana was. They do now. I will say this. Have we seen, I've seen this Malik Willis. I've seen him play twice against ULM and then against Louisiana. And I don't see what the fuss is. Am I missing something about this guy?
Yes, because he is able to extend plays so that even when his receivers are not open downfield, he's able to juke, jive, everything else behind the line to get them open when the coverage does break down, because even the most elite defensive backs are going to break down their coverage after a certain amount of time. Plus, he has enough speed that if there is just nothing open, that he can run it upfield. A great dual threat quarterback that I think any team in the Sun Belt would love to have.
Well, that might be true. I just haven't seen it yet. So I thought maybe I'm just missing something about him. But I felt now he's got, I think this year Liberty is 1-2 against the Sun Belt this year. So hats off to Sun Belt for besting Hugh Freeze.
The other whooping of the weekend, App State put it on Troy, and I did not see that one coming. Not surprised that App State won, just that they won 45-7 over Troy in Veterans Memorial Stadium. I mean, it locked up the trip to Lafayette for the Mountaineers to face Louisiana Lafayette again in the Sun Belt Conference title. Nate Noel, 100 yards, Chase Bryce, 3 touchdowns. Another day at the office, but I just did not expect it to be that wide of a margin.
Yeah, but you know what? It was like another one of those wins, like when Appalachian State played South Alabama. You know, both South Alabama and Troy, very good defenses, and it takes Appalachian State a while to crack that Da Vinci Code. At halftime, it was 10-7 with Appalachian State having that 3-point lead, and then they just went medieval on them. 21 points in the third, 14 in the fourth, allowing 0 points to Troy after the first quarter. So yeah, it was a dominating performance by Appalachian State. But as usual, it seems like they take their time, kind of like in a way that Louisiana does, only in a different kind of way. It's almost like they toy with their opponents at the very beginning, trying to find that weakness, and then they explode.
Speaking of explosion, Grayson McCall came back on the scene, 5 touchdowns, 319 in the shots, 35-21 win over Texas State. The Boobcats are back. Vitt did have a passing touchdown, though, to Marcel Barbary. That was the lone passing touchdown, though, for Vitt. The other 2 were rushing touchdowns. Again, not surprised at the outcome of that game, just maybe that it was truthfully not as wide as I would have thought that it was going to be.
Well, Texas State, they scored 2 touchdowns in the second, and it looked like, oh my God, Texas State is going to somehow find a way to beat Coastal Carolina, and Coastal Carolina is the paper tiger that some of us had said they really were. Grayson McCall came back. I think they named him, Sun Belt named him the offensive player of the week. And well, he had 5 touchdowns, so he deserves all of that. But yeah, Texas State, they just don't have anything this year. You know, I was looking, I was doing a review of Arkansas State versus Texas State, putting it together and just trying to figure out where Texas State was strong. I looked at Vitt. He started 3 games now since McBride has kind of been put on the shelf. And I think he has 2 passing touchdowns in 3 games. He's not really lighting it up. He's not throwing many picks, so maybe that's what Spavital likes about him. But Texas State just, for whatever reason, has not put it together this year. And we talked a little bit to Chris Vannini about the future of Spavital. I don't know what the future of Spavital is, if they give him another year to figure it out or what. But it looks like weird times in San Marcos, and they'll probably want to do a better job against Arkansas. It'll be kind of a statement game against Arkansas State next week.
And everything I'd heard about Spavital was that he did have one more year to kind of turn things around, knowing that, you know, this year was a lot of JUCOs that they are going, and transfer portal guys that they're going to actually kind of get that carryover year. So it kind of lays a good foundation for them for next year. I haven't looked at their schedule next year to know how realistic it is. You know, do they have a bunch of body bag games, or are they playing kind of the other G5s? But yeah, I think next year is the year that the Bobcats have to kind of crank it up. If not, they will be the first ones on that coaching carousel.
Yeah, I really thought this was that year, but I could have jumped the gun on that. Maybe he gets one more year, but I don't root against anybody, but right now Spavital doesn't seem like the guy.
6 sacks, 4 rushing touchdowns helped the Panthers down the Red Wolves in the cat fight. Lincoln Pear, y'all's big NIL guy, the running back, 118 yards and 118 yards receiving with 1 touchdown. He's a good little scat back. Nothing really stands out about him, but he's a good back that I think a lot of teams would love to have on their side, and is there with the big play capabilities.
Yeah, Lincoln Pear, he came on the scene last season. It was a bit of a surprise. He actually has a congenital heart defect. So that was kind of like a little sub story about him. Oh my God, we got a running back that has a damaged heart. But quite frankly, he is our most effective running back. He can catch the ball, as you can see, with those 100 yards and a TD against Georgia State. But he's also been our most effective ground guy too. He's only getting about 3 yards per carry. I think there has been a couple stories that have come out about just how awful the Red Wolves rush game is, and it's not pretty. I think we lead the nation in a dubious category of negative yardage plays, and that has a lot to do with the run game. But that game against Georgia State was interesting. Much like that ULM game against LSU, Arkansas State had every opportunity to win that game. Lane Hatcher threw 2 picks at the goal line. We had instances where, if a wide receiver had just made a play, we could have gotten, into the end zone. So there was a lot of things that we looked at. The defense actually played really well and actually scored one of the touchdowns against Georgia State. So the defense, we're seeing a lot of improvements. The offense seems to be crumbling, but give it to Georgia State. Georgia State played a very solid game. They did bring a lot of heat to Lane Hatcher, like you said, the 6 sacks, but also their own quarterback, whose name's only escapes me.
Darren Granger.
Yeah, Granger. He was sacked several times himself, but he led that team to the win. It was a good win for Georgia State. Congratulations to Georgia State making it bowl eligible. Hats off.
Maybe Ben's still celebrating, and that's why he couldn't join us tonight.
Yes, he might be at Club Dub right now ordering another round of shots.
Speaking of shots, the nationally ranked Brigham Young Cougars headed to Statesboro. Georgia Southern gave up over 500 yards total offense. But the story of the game was the Georgia Southern students throwing burritos at the Cougars. And this is something that is oddly Sunbelt. If you remember back when we had Boogie Night on the show, way back when, I told the story about Jaron Johnson having an entire pizza thrown at him at Louisiana Lafayette.
I remember.
Why is the Sunbelt throwing food at everyone?
I don't know. Was it burrito day in Statesboro?
I just hope it was a cheap crap one and not like, the expensive Chipotle.
Why are we arming students with burritos? I think we need some burrito control in Georgia, because that's just not a great look. Hey, listen though, Georgia Southern played a pretty good game for a time against nationally ranked BYU. Now BYU ended up getting ahead and doing their thing, but Georgia Southern, did their best. They did what they could. they have one of the worst defenses in all of college football, barely better than Arkansas State. So, yeah, it's no surprise they gave up 500 yards, but they did put up some points. They didn't put any points up in the second half, but they did make a game of it in the first half. Hats off to Georgia Southern for not making this game so out of control. And also hats off to BYU. This is the second time BYU has come to a Sun Belt venue and, had to, make that travel late in the season. So, BYU is not one of those programs that turns their nose up late at the season and says, we're not coming to a Sun Belt school. They'll do it. So I feel good about that.
Definitely. And especially one of the harder ones to get to there in Statesboro. I mean, there's no direct, easy way to get there to Statesboro. Not a knock on it. It is what it is.
The only way to get to Statesboro is to grow a Burt Reynolds mustache and infiltrate an illegal moonshine operation. That's the only way to get it. So,
I thought that's how you got to Middle Tennessee.
Well, there might be several schools that's the only way to gain entry.
It's Thanksgiving week, so that means that we get 2 days of Sun Belt Conference football, with Friday, the Chants heading south to Lower Alabama, making the inaugural trip to Hancock Whitney Stadium.
Yes.
I don't know what to think of the Jags after that disappointment last week against Tennessee. And there's just no Bentley, but there's a McCall. I think the Chants just roll all over this one.
I do too, even though South Alabama has every reason in the world to win this game. They're going to be at home. They need this victory to be Sun Belt eligible. I have a feeling Womack will find a way to get these guys ready. But I really, I haven't, I know that there has been some doubts about Coastal Carolina. Are they really as good as the press clippings that they were receiving? I think Coastal Carolina is a good team. Not only that, I think they're a great team. I've seen them in action. I've seen how they play. I really do think you're right. I think Coastal Carolina kind of comes in, bullies South Alabama, destroys any chance of them getting a bowl game. Coastal Carolina gets that 10th win. They don't have a shot at being in the Sun Belt tournament, or the Sun Belt championship, but they still have a little chip on their shoulder. I think they still want to show that they belong in that upper echelon. And there's one more thing that I think gives Coastal Carolina the edge, and that's Jamie Chadwell. He's auditioning right now for some pretty big gigs. I remember in 2012, the last game of the season, Arkansas State played MTSU, Middle Tennessee, and at the time, Gus Malzahn was the coach at Arkansas State, and he threw the kitchen sink at Middle Tennessee. And at one point, I was like, why is the quarterback still out there? Why are we doing this to Middle Tennessee? It was something like 49-0 at one point. And it turned out the next couple of days, he took a job at Auburn. So I could see that it was probably Gus Malzahn saying, look, this is what I can do for Auburn. I can see Jamie Chadwell using this as an audition tape for when he makes the rounds.
Old SoCon matchup there. Georgia Southern goes to Appalachian State. 0% chance that Georgia Southern wins this game. App State uses it as a tune-up before the Sun Belt Conference Championship game next week. No questions.
Is there a negative percentage that we can put on this?
I don't want to be the negative person, Jeremy.
I was looking, we've seen Georgia Southern upset premium teams before at the end of the season. And we've certainly seen Appalachian State sort of lose track of the ball at the end of the season. That being said, I feel like this year's Appalachian State team is one of the most professional teams that I've seen in a long time in the Sun Belt. I don't see any chance for Georgia Southern getting their ducks in a row and finding. I feel like the game against BYU was their last game. I don't see them bringing it to Boone, even though it's a home game. It's a home game for Georgia Southern. No, I'm sorry. My bad.
It is in Boone.
It's in Boone. My bad. It's a home game for Appalachian State, which makes it even worse for Georgia Southern. Yes, I agree 100%. There's no chance Georgia Southern wins this game.
Troy will travel up I-85 to Atlanta to face the Panthers. I think Georgia State's going to take this one as well. I think Troy is just done and in flux, having let Chip Lindsey go as their head coach. I think that the way they worded it, there's a change of leadership of football, but it doesn't matter. Georgia State's going to win this one, and we're going to hear the air horn and a happy Ben if he ever returns.
All right, but let's think of this. What's in it for Georgia State to win this game? You know, they already got their bowl eligibility.
I think you're playing for improved bowl eligibility, and not a knock on any of the tie-ins, but I think that you would rather go maybe to New Orleans as opposed to Coastal Carolina, where you have the indoor game and, you know, it's more fan friendly than maybe a cold trip to the beach in Myrtle Beach or a rainy Cure Bowl or Boca Raton Bowl. So I think you're just trying to improve where you go and not necessarily to go somewhere, because it's almost the gimme that you're going somewhere.
You know, absolutely. 7-5 sounds so much better than 6-6. I mean, it sounds like light years ahead. But Troy does have incentive to play well in this game. Yes, they got embarrassed by Appalachian State. Yes, their head coach has been fired. And I know from experience this year, when a head coach gets fired, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come out dejected and disheveled. Arkansas State went into Georgia Southern this year, the week that they fired their head coach. And we're thinking, okay, these guys are going to be disorganized. They're going to be, a little bit down. And they weren't. They were fired up. So who knows? Perhaps Troy comes into this game as fired up as they've been all year, end up getting that bowl eligibility, getting 6-6, and showing that, hey, it wasn't us that was the problem. Chip Lindsey was the problem. So you know what? I'm picking Troy. I have convinced myself. I think Troy wins this game.
Your rival Bobcats are headed to Jonesboro.
Those sons of bitches.
If McBride plays,
yeah,
I'm going Bobcats. Ooh. If not, Lane Hatcher has a day. I know it's offense versus offense, but I'm sticking with my boy McBride.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that it's offense versus. You say it's offense versus offense, but Arkansas State only has a reputation for offense. Their offense has been terrible for about 5 weeks now. And it's really kind of hard to figure it out, except for the fact that the offensive line is just not very good. Not good at all. Maybe historically bad. But with Texas State, it's confusing to me why McBride is sitting. Vitt has been given, McBride got hurt, but McBride isn't hurt anymore. Vitt's just getting the shot. So after last week's game, I think Vitt threw for 100 yards and 1 touchdown pass. I don't know if they just kind of made him a game manager, but he's not winning games with his arm. So I don't know if that's just part of the game plan or what. I wouldn't be surprised if McBride comes up for this game, Dusty. I feel like maybe this is when he comes back and takes charge. But neither team has a whole lot of incentive to win this game.
No, it's ugly. Oh, it's ugly on paper. It's going to be ugly there in person.
I do know this, that at Arkansas State, there is talk of a lot of it's almost like auditioning. It's sort of, this is it. This is the last game. Do you want to be a part of this program or not? We've already seen about 4 or 5 guys quietly enter the transfer portal. And you can tell that there's some people that are going to be Butch Jones guys and some people aren't. And I think this will be a litmus test for a lot of guys coming out. We're going to see a lot of new faces on the gridiron. We're going to see some different things. I think Arkansas State does win this game. I think they win this game at home. I don't think the Texas Bobcats have much to offer in terms of offense or defense. I'm going to go with Arkansas State. I'm sorry, Dusty, you can't tell me otherwise. Arkansas State wins.
It's going to be ugly regardless. So
yes.
Either way, next week we will talk about this game going, good God, did you see how they won this game?
That's right. Or it could be the greatest game we've ever seen played.
First one to 100 wins.
I hope. That would be nice. I would love to see some offense. That would be great.
Speaking of which, last year the Cajuns hung 70 on ULM in Malone Stadium on the campus of ULM. This year, ULM heads to Cajun Field in Lafayette. I like ULM and what I saw at LSU and the hopes that the Raging Cajuns are looking ahead to that conference championship. The Cajuns really have nothing to play for in this game, in all honesty, beyond the pride and Napier's perfect Sun Belt Conference record.
But you know what? Okay.
With his name being thrown around as a head coach at so many places, the one negative that I have heard is he has not won a Sun Belt Conference title. Does he, for lack of a better term, look beyond ULM to focus on finally getting a Sun Belt Conference title?
See, I kind of look at it another way. Kind of the same way I'm looking at that Coastal Carolina game. Napier, too, is building his resume. We talked to Chris Vannini a little bit about Louisiana, how they don't seem to, club their opponents in a way that's impressive to the College Football Playoff Committee. I think they're playing for a couple reasons. One, they want to gain the notice of that committee. I think that's important to them. I think it's important to Napier. I think Napier just wants to show that he belongs in that group. Two, you're right. The Cajuns haven't won a Sun Belt Conference title in a while. Definitely not under Napier. I feel like Napier is as focused as he's ever been. The last two games, Louisiana has actually, start putting on some points, start putting on a show, trying to get that, trying to raise those eyebrows. Lastly, they're playing against ULM, and they don't like ULM. I don't think the players need much motivation when those two get on the field. That being said, I also on the other side with ULM, you had that big game against LSU. And I can't imagine after that game how tired and exhausted and physically beat up you must be. So now you get Louisiana, who is almost just as physical. I don't know. That seems like a tough sled. I think Louisiana wins this game, and I think they win it pretty handedly, even though I am rooting for ULM because I think ULM is one of the most entertaining programs in the Sun Belt right now.
So you don't think the Cajuns kind of troll along the Warhawks in this game?
I really don't. Normally I would say yes, but I feel like that there is so much spotlight on Napier right now that he's probably spending an extra 2 hours every night thinking of schemes and scoring plays and ways to get Chris Smith into the end zone and Levi Lewis to throw more touchdowns. I really think that they use this as sort of a bow on top of the season.
Well, I will be there to cover it for the FunBelt podcast as well as Warhawk Report. So we will have all of the analysis of that game.
I want analysis. I want color commentary. I want behind the scenes information. I want sideline reports. I want it all.
Depends on the weather. Because if it's cold and rainy, like there's always the potential of it being for that Battle of the Bayou game.
Yeah.
This kid is not leaving the penthouse in the sky of the press box.
I tell you what, ever since I've been covering games from the press box, it's been very hard to drag me down into the elements. So we have gotten soft, Dusty. This life we live has made us soft.
That is very true. Very true. So this week, South Alabama will find out their fate of the NCAA tournament for volleyball.
Oh, okay.
So we have that going on. I want to say the selection show is coming up on Thursday. and they will play sometime next week. Basketball, hardwood. We have future members battling it out, with Marshall beating Louisiana Lafayette 26-21 at almost the half. Appalachian State beat Akron today.
Hey.
And later tonight, Jeremy, Cliff Ellis never sent the plane. Valpo is playing Coastal down in the Bahamas at 7:00. I did see they had some issues where I guess a air conditioner or something like that had gone out. There was water all over the floor, so it was delayed. Only in the Bahamas.
I was like, good God. I guess that happens.
I guess it happens.
But what a time for it to happen, right? When you're hosting a tournament. It seems like you would have, people at the ready to make sure that this court stays dry, but I guess that just wasn't foreseen. But yeah, you know what? I saw too that somebody beat FIU, and I suddenly can't remember who it was.
FAU got beat by Troy.
Yeah, Troy beat FAU, which was a nice peer conference win for Troy, who isn't really expected to do much in the Sun Belt this year. So it's nice for Troy to pick up that win for the Sun Belt. Yeah, it seems like the Sun Belt basketball is beginning to roll. I'd love to see what Cliff Ellis does in this tournament if they ever dry out that court. And we'll see if we can get some bigger wins. I know that some big teams are coming up on the horizon. Hopefully we'll get Ben Moore back on here, our basketball guru, and he can tell us what's happening.
Yeah, and while we're on that note of talking about future episodes, don't forget that on December 5th, we will move to Sunday nights, Jeremy.
Because we're going full basketball.
Full basketball, recapping freshly that Sunday night, the Sun Belt Conference Championship game.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to be epic.
We will also come to understand who is the Sun Belt sheriff of the league when Hellraiser names its first ever Sun Belt Sheriff Award winner.
Is that after the conference championship game?
Right before the conference championship game, it will be announced. So, we're still tabulating numbers. We fired up the supercomputer. We shoveled in some coal into it so it works extra hard. And we'll see what name it spits out.
I am not eligible for that, by the way, Jeremy.
You're not eligible? No, none of us are. But we'll see who it is. And remember, it's not for the team that necessarily wins the Sun Belt. It's for the team that showed us exactly what a Sun Belt program should be. So we'll see who that is.
Parting shots, promos, and plugs. Jeremy, what you got?
Hellraiser is diligently working on a Texas State versus Arkansas State preview. It should come out tomorrow. I hope you guys read that. We will also be talking a little bit about Arkansas State basketball. They've got only one loss on the season. They seem to be rolling. So fingers crossed that Arkansas State gives us a little bit of relief on the hard court.
Warhawk Report, we're covering recruiting, getting ready for the December signing period, as well as wrapping up the football season. On the horizon, some interviews there with head coach Terry Bowden, kind of recapping how his first year went, as well as trying to get caught up with head basketball coach Keith Richard to preview the Sun Belt Conference portion of the schedule coming up in late December. But as always, FunBelt PC on the Twitter, DM us, drop us an email at funbeltpc@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and love to have some show ideas from you to make sure that we're keeping the show interesting and fresh. We have a lot of ideas. Sometimes it takes a little time to get them up and going, but we have a lot of things in the oven cooking right now.
We definitely do. And special thanks to Chris Vannini for coming on the show. And I guess we'll just close it down now.
First decision of the morning. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or will we ease into the day with a sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Ooh, what about that white chocolate mocha? No matter which flavor you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Better coffee starts a better day. Start with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Glad Force Flex Max Strength now has bags with a 2-times stronger top for over-the-top strength. Like the kind of over-the-top strength needed when wrapping up a dinner party with the clumsiest guest in the world.
I'm sorry. It's fine. Totally fine. I can help.
No need. Let me just grab these plates. Looks like everyone enjoyed the chicken. Let's throw those bones here.
Want me to hold the bag?
Nope. Just toss in those remnants of the cake, along with my grandmother's vase you shattered.
And let me grab those candlesticks for you.
Not while they're on fire.
Glad Force Flex Max Strength. Strong enough for all of life's garbage.
2-times stronger top versus 13-gallon Force Flex bags.